This is Ann. I'll take, I believe the next one is line 11, Courtney Wooten. The start of the school year is always an exciting and busy time for students, parents, and educators. We all know that this year is going to look different due to the pandemic, but I also want to bring your attention to the Black Lives Matter at School's national proposal for a year of purpose. Last year, after school closures, ESD students and community members of all races came together on Juneteenth in solidarity with our Black students and community. The aftermath of the state-sanctioned murder of George Floyd was global anti-racist uprising. Here in Edmonds, our BSU students brought a list of demands and a vision for transformative, inclusive schooling and education. I want to thank the ESD board and cabinet again for rethinking and recommitting to student safety and well-being, and to ask that you take the initial steps to join me in committing to a year of purpose. The national call asks, quote, educators to reflect on their own work in relationship to anti-racist pedagogy and abolitionist practice, persistently challenging themselves to center Black lives in their classrooms, unquote. We know that our work must be intersectional, it must be intentional, and it must be ongoing. We also know that anti-Black racism is pervasive in our community and country, and that it harms us all, Black, white, and brown, in different ways. By committing to do better for our students of color, we commit to doing better for everyone. I hope you will look into the Year of Purpose on the Black Lives Matter at School website and begin by simply engaging in their 5 questions for self-reflection. This school year will be different and unprecedented. It is up to us to make it truly meaningful and to fill our lives, our community, and our educational spaces with purpose. The next is from Dixie Usury, and it's regarding iReady. It says, I have used iReady in the 2nd grade for the past 3 years. I have found iReady to be an essential tool for differentiation, with a little guidance for the students to teach them how to take the diagnostic, and for the parents to understand the importance of this diagnostic and ways they can and cannot help during the assessment. These assessments gave me a starting off point for leveled small groups. This was a way for me to catch the holes that students have and systematically work with them to fill in these holes, therefore creating a firmer foundation to build upon. This tool supports students at all levels, whether they are at kindergarten level or 8th grade level. The professional development offered by iReady is priceless and directly instructs teachers how to use reliable data to drive instruction. The diagnostic informs teachers in real time how the students are performing. Teachers can see which students are rushing through the assessment, and it informs them of inconsistent data. The program allows for teacher intervention for instructional grouping. Before the pandemic, iReady was an amazing program. Now the iReady program is essential. And the next is from Carissa Richards regarding the Black Lives Year of Purpose. This beginning of the school year with the Edmonds School District is going to look a little different for everyone. The start of the year is always filled with excitement and a sense of purpose from the teachers on down to the students and families. It is my sincere hope that we can capitalize on that excitement and turn it into action in regards to being an anti-racist school district. The Black Lives Matter at School focus this year is called A Year of Purpose. The recent uprising for Black lives has encouraged the Black Lives Matter at School movement to expand its focus and activities to a, quote, year of purpose, unquote, in addition to the annual week of action that is traditionally held during the first week of February. Educators and community members will be asked to participate and create learning environments that reflect the experiences of Black children and families. Throughout the school year, we will have the opportunity to uplift different voices and themes in an intersectional way. The ESD board and cabinet showed your commitment to the Black Lives Matter movement last year by adopting the Black Lives Matter Month of Action. I want to encourage your further support of the movement that we have already established in our own school district. It is my hope that the ESD can continue to be frontline leaders in this area. You have already shown us that the voices of our BIPOC students and families do matter. Continuing to put action behind our words will only help push our community towards more anti-racist practices, which will in turn benefit every single educator and student in the ESD. It is my hope that you all will take a moment to visit the Black Lives Matter at School website and learn more about what we can do to turn words into action and create more safe spaces for our BIPOC community. And I'll turn it over to someone else.
Next, this is Karen, and I believe I am on line 14, Teresa Lind. And her agenda topic is iReady. And Teresa writes, "This will be my 5th year in the Edmonds School District. I work as the secondary math lead. Over the last few years, I've had a number of task force committees aimed and research, reflection, and improvement around the mathematics experience for our students and families. One common theme has come up continuously. Why don't we have access to reliable data to inform the decisions we make as a district, the decisions we make as teachers, and the program guidance we provide for our schools? Typically, we have one data point, the SBA data. This data serves a purpose of providing annual benchmark data. It has so many limitations. Teachers need an assessment tool to guide their instruction, to inform the professional learning communities, and they need this now more than ever. Curriculum instruction and assessment provide a triad that provides a balance of support. iReady is the tool that teachers want and need." Oh, okay, now we have Dawn Whiteherd, and the agenda topic is iReady. "I highly recommend the adoption of iReady for math assessment. I have taught high school math in our district for 13 years. Almost every one of those years, I've had to create some form of intervention. Every year that I've taught Algebra 1, I've worked with kids who have 1st and 2nd grade math skills. Every year that I've taught Algebra 1, I've had a significant number of kids who are so far behind they cannot access algebra content. When we ask the district for support, they deny the problem exists because we don't have the data. We have had terrible WASL, EOC, SBA scores in math, but the district says it is not a good enough indicator. We had MobyMax, but again, we were told the data was not good enough. We have teachers all over the district busting their butts to try to address the issue, but our professional opinions and observations are not trusted. 2 years ago, I wrote an assessment of basic sixth grade skills, the must-haves for accessing Algebra 1, working with integers, understanding what a variable is, graphing a point, and then worked with my feeder middle school and our math TOSA to give and grade the assessment. Only a handful of 8th graders scored 90% or higher. The vast majority scored under 50%. That is appalling. What is more appalling is that we didn't have the kind of data until the kids were about to enter 9th grade. Without accurate data, ESD, we do not see the need for K-12 math intervention. Without accurate data, we teachers take months of classroom observation and data collection to identify kids who are struggling. Without accurate data, we teachers cannot convince the district that there is even a real need for intervention. And now we, the pilot committee, have taken hours and hours of our time to select a tool so that we can get the data you demand and we desperately need. Please accept our recommendation to adopt iReady." Next is, oh, who is that? Lori, I believe it is Lori Vasquez. Is that correct?
Velasquez.
Velasquez. It is not all showing on my screen, so apologies as I work the tech. I come to you today as a grandmother, a wife, as a mother, as a sister, as a friend. These are just some of the many roles that I assume. I'm also a classified employee, a union leader, and an office manager at one of our schools. I believe that my life and my health has the same worth as someone who holds a teaching certificate. I contribute daily to the operations of the school district, have been doing so for 25 years, including during this pandemic. I am so disappointed that you, as leaders, don't think that my life has any worth. I am not sure why you think this way when you obviously value other employees and their health and well-being. I'm also not sure why you've been lying to all of us and the public about working with different associations when that has not been the case. Did you know that, or did you just assume that people would not do the jobs you asked them to do? I'm certain you'll say you can't comment on negotiations, but the fact of the matter is we do not have an open negotiation with the district right now. The reason we aren't discussing anything is that the MOU we submitted to be considered was refused without a counterproposal. We were told many half-truths and outright lies. When we were told our buildings are clean and safe. Believe me, I know you can't run your schools without us, but what is your plan? If, God forbid, we all die, why is there flexibility for some employees but not others? What kind of example is set when your classified human resources director refuses to allow remote work for our group, even though a number of our members are not allowed in the ESC every day? Yet he, and I'm sure many other upper level employees, work from the safety of their own homes. I have an email where equality was thrown in our face as a primary reason as to why I should be in the building daily when nothing was ever discussed about why the Teachers Association has the option to choose the setting where their work takes place. I do understand that we are different types of employees, but we're all human beings and deserve the same rights that you are freely giving to only a select group. I'm asking you to encourage, the Human Resources Department to have an honest conversation with our group about the feasibility of us working remotely for at least part of our time each week. All of us deserve a safe place to work where we can stay healthy. And I believe that was the last comment.
Yep. Thank you. I don't know, Dr. Balderas, if you have any comments to make. We don't take action on public comment, but if there's anything you'd like to say at this time, or we can wait till the end, I leave it to you.
Regards to negotiations or just
any of the comments that were any of the public comments.
I think a lot of the public comments had to do with there's a variety of comments with regards to iReady. I know the board will get a presentation later on and I can answer questions then. For regards to working from home, that's something that our schools are open right now for business. Our schools are open for business and we have our admin staff there and a skeleton crew of front office staff to be able to support the daily operations. And we have allowed our paras to be able to work from home for a period of time, and we'll reassess that in a few weeks to see how it's working, to see if we can extend that possibly. And again, our goal is to come back to our brick and mortar schools, to our campuses sooner than later. I think that's something that we all want. I know our families want, our kids want, and our staff want. So I think that's the ultimate goal, is how do we get ready for that and step up and even look to hopefully bring some kids in sooner than later in small learning pods if possible, for our most marginalized students, the students that need special program services, some of our students that are unhoused, for example. Those are the types of students that we would really like to move back to our brick and mortars sooner than later. I know that a lot of districts are doing that. That's a conversation that we will have. So I appreciate the comments. And again, our number one goal is staff and student safety. It is staff and student safety. Students are not in the building right now. The majority of staff are not there. Our principals are there right now. Our custodial staff have been there and present, and we will ensure that we operate in a safe manner, like we have been. And again, do understand the issues, and we do have different work responsibilities. And again, but we are open for business right now at our school campuses and need staff to be able to run those campuses effectively. I can't comment to that.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have our consent agenda. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
This is Ann, seconded.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? This is where I normally talk all about the field trips that kids take and how much I'm happy for them. So I am as anxious as anyone for our kids to get back in the building and get back to learning in person. Well, here,
I just, Deborah, I'd like to just make one comment, and it's just an observation. On the secondary schedules, I'm hoping that, honestly, that most secondary schools will choose the block schedule. I don't know how good teaching and learning can happen in a 25-minute period and with 6 of those every day. I appreciate that teachers made that decision, that there were secondary teachers who think that it'll work, and I hope that it will work. But I hope that it will be assessed by the teachers and listen to input from kids and parents as well to see how it's going. Because I think the block schedule that are 50-minute periods seem much more reasonable in terms, and only 3 of those per day rather than 6. I just wanted to say that observation, and we'll see how it goes.
is there any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. I'd like to call for a roll call vote, please. All the on the motion to approve the consent agenda.
Director Kadams,
Aye.
Director McMurray,
Aye.
Director Chase,
Aye.
Director Noble,
Aye.
Director Kilgore,
Aye. The motion passes. The consent agenda is approved. Next, we have a celebration to honor our reopening plan teams. Take it away.
So thank you. And we do want to really honor the work that was done this summer by the 21 different work groups that we had worked throughout the summer in preparation for the reopening of our Edmond schools 2020. And it was truly a heavy lift and a lot of work done as soon as actually school ended, and just finished just recently. And again, like you stated, there's still work being done at some of the levels at the school sites, but off recommendations created by our work groups. I do want to turn it over to Allison. I believe we have a little slideshow. Is that right, Allison?
yes, and I
Well-
believe that some of our cabinet will be recognizing each of the teams.
Thank you. Turn it over to cabinet members who oversee the departments.
Thank you, Dr. Balderas. And so I'll start. I had the pleasure of working with the teams that worked on the facilities and operations side of planning for the start of the school year. And again, I just cannot say enough about the work that each of these teams did. And so I want to start by recognizing transportation and Ben Mount, who led that team. And you can see the other folks that also joined him in the work that transportation did to try to get ready for the school year. And then the next group that has done an amazing job, even prior to this summer, right when we first closed, is our Food and Nutrition Services Department. Have just done an amazing job feeding our students and making sure that those meals are accessible to kids at a variety of sites. And so Megan DeVries and her team have just done an outstanding job and continue to do an outstanding job as we get ready to start this new school year. Of course, Lydia Selly and the business services team and all the work we did to get ready to understand the budget and the impacts and the CARES Act funds that we've been receiving, and just really appreciate all the work they've done to help keep the business services side of the house going. And I would like to, our health services team, led by Mara Marana Bianco and Cindy Luger, have just, again, since March, have been incredible supports to the district and helping us think about all things health and safety as we prepare for reopening.
Greg, can you turn up your microphone? Sorry.
I'm trying, hold on here. See what I can do here.
How's this? The next group that I want to recognize is our custodial maintenance, grounds, and safety and security team led by Matt Finch. We, again, have been working since last spring. Julie Stronsek, our district athletic director, led the work for all the work we did on extracurricular activities in athletics. And again, while we don't have anything going on right now, there are plans in place when it's safe to do so to resume our activities. And Cynthia Nelson and Chris Bailey and the work that they have done in technology to get Chromebooks into the hands of our students and help us think about all things learning management systems and all the work that they have done to help us get prepared for the start of the school year. And our human resources team led by Debbie Carter, figuring out all the different aspects of human resources and getting our staff ready to come back to work, both on the certificated and the classified side. And our childcare team led by Helen Jung, our new assistant superintendent, again, providing the important services and access to childcare for all of our families. And our communications team, Harmony, has just done an outstanding job of keeping us informed, keeping our community informed, keeping our staff informed, as we have sent out so many important messages to help our families and our staff know what's going on as we prepare to start the school year. And I think I'm going to hand it off to Rob.
Good evening, everyone. Sorry I'm a little late. We had our community forum this evening for our Spanish-speaking families just wrap up at 7. So really glad that we get to take an opportunity to recognize all of the wonderful staff that contributed to our reopening planning this summer. And I'll start by just saying that while we had some standing members of our Professional Excellence Committee that have showed up since February, really, to help us think about this crazy time that we're in and all the educational planning. When we shifted to summer planning, we actually had to turn people away. We had such tremendous interest from our teacher corps to want to participate. It really says so much about our wonderful teachers and leaders in our system. First team is our elementary team, which was led by Joanne Todd. We have our secondary team, which was led by Kim Hunter, who is our Director of Secondary Education and highly capable. Big team there. We also had our special education team, which was co-led by Haley Etnier and Joe Callahan, running point with that team. Lots for them to figure out this summer. We combined some categorical program planning into one group, and that's with our English learners, our Title I program, and our learning assistance program, and that work was led by Kelly Moses. Our visual and performing arts team was led by Scott Barnes. Our physical education team was led by Jenny Hershey and Jenny McClellan, lovingly known as the Jennies. And of course, our CTE team was led by Mark Madison. We also had a small team of our library information specialists, and that was led by Leanne Law, who is a teacher on special assignment who supports that team. We also had an early learning team led by Darcy Becker and Wes Keller. I think this is you, Dr. Balderas.
Thank you. And I also want to really appreciate the community and students that participated in our advisory that's still continuing here, and again, a lot of cabinet, a lot of staff, but parents, and again, the student voice that we start off each meeting with is really, really impactful for us, because we directly ask kids how they're feeling first to really kind of help frame the rest of the conversation. And our kids, that's why we're here for, our students, and just their words are very powerful. And it's just amazing how the quality of students that we have here in our district, and just proud of our kids, and looking forward to our next meeting here this Friday afternoon. So, but also just to really appreciate all the senior staff that have been involved in this, and the board members that also have been involved, Dr. Kilgore, Dr. Kadams, you've been involved, and Director Noble also in the CER, in terms of directly in these meetings as we've started off in March all the way through now. And it's just been a heavy lift, and look forward to the beginning of school tomorrow. So that's part of my comments, but just want to give kudos to all the folks that have participated this summer. And there's a ton of staff that aren't being recognized that did work a lot of summer on their own in preparation for the fall. Again, just kudos to every staff member. And I think part of it is just the numbers themselves. I think I've mentioned this before to the board, is our nutrition departments provide over 600,000 meals to our community, 600,000 meals. Thousands and thousands of laptops have been distributed and are continuing to be distributed even tonight to our families in preparation for tomorrow morning. And really the work done to really provide more connectivity and access for our families as basic ed is now really, the connectivity is basic ed, and we need our kids to be connected to the internet, and the work that we're going to continue to do, not just locally, but hopefully as a state, to push that agenda, because it's something that everybody, it's no different than a utility now for kids to be successful, to have that access at home, and looking forward to that continued push here locally. So again, thank you for the opportunity to be able to celebrate our folks, and we can move on. So then turn over back to you, Dr. Kilgore.
Thank you. Let me find my place. Okay, and next we have some reports. Our first is on an update on school liaison officers. Assistant Superintendent Schwab, take it away.
Thank you. So as a follow-up to the presentation that we did a couple of board meetings ago on the liaison officer program, I wanted to share some status updates with all of you. First, I wanted to let you know that I have been in contact with each of our local municipal police agencies, Mount Lake Terrace, Linwood, and Edmonds, and have their support to implement liaison officer programs at Edmonds Woodway High School, Meadowdale High School, and Mount Lake Terrace High School. I also spoke with Captain Keith Rogers from the Snohomish County Sheriff's Office. He is the patrol captain and supervises the patrol officers, and asked about their ability to support a liaison officer program at Linwood High School. And while they would like to be able to support it, they're unable to. And it does not have anything to do with their willingness. It really has to do with how they assign their deputies to patrol areas. They do not assign their deputies to regular patrol areas. They assign them based on need in the county. And so it's really difficult for them to identify deputies that could serve in a liaison officer capacity. They continue to work together to support the needs of Linwood High School. We have some subsequent conversations planned, but like I said, at this time, that's just not something that they can do. So as a follow-up to that, I would like to recommend that we do, when we are back in school in a brick and mortar fashion, I would recommend that we implement a position at Linwood High School, similar to the one we use at Edmonds Heights and Scriber Lake campus. It's a school security officer position, and it has some very specific requirements for work experience that would provide, I think, a higher level of support for Linwood High School. So as we get closer to that opportunity to get back to school in a brick and mortar setting, I want to continue to work on providing that level of support for Linwood High School. So with that, I want to see if there are any questions that I can answer for you.
Greg, this is Nancy. I just want to clarify for the public that to hire, and I think it's like a security officer for Linwood High, is that a person who carries a gun
No,
and
no,
or
no,
wears a uniform?
no, no. They're a district employee, and much like the person at Scriber Lake and Edmonds Heights campus, plain clothes, does not carry any guns, but he does have specific training that allows him to provide a higher level of support.
Great, thank you.
I'm interested in having those future conversations as in context of a larger discussion about school safety in general and sort of what our model is.
Exactly. That's the bigger conversation that we also need to have. I believe that there's some work ahead of us as far as understanding when we talk about a comprehensive school safety program, what does that mean and what does that entail? And I know both Dr. Balderas and I have had those conversations about needing to convene a task force of some kind that is going to begin that work so that when we get back to school in some kind of face-to-face fashion again, we will have that plan, have those plans in place as well.
To the continued discussion on our what makes a safe community to safe schools. So.
And I think this is important to bring the community in on some of this, not maybe every detail, but certainly to get community input about what that means to them.
Agreed.
Okay. Thank you. Next,
Thank you.
is there any, I'm sorry, did I cut you off or are you finished? Any other questions? Okay. Next we have our career and technical education plan of work with Director Mark Madison.
Thank you, board, and thank you, Dr. Balderas, for the opportunity to present to you tonight. And for those, again, who are attending, my name is Mark Madison. I am the Director of Career and College Readiness, which includes career and technical education for the Edmonds School District. And tonight I have the privilege of sharing a summary of our plan of work for the 2020-21 and beyond school year, as well as a look back at some of the accomplishments of our plan of work from the past year. Next slide, please. Before I jump into the actual plan of work, I just want to provide just a little background around what is career and technical education and what makes career and technical education unique. We are what used to be called years ago vocational education, but we have basically, we are not your grandfather's wood shop is what I always like to say. We are very different. And we are driven, just like every other area of education, by both federal and state law. We have very specific federal law known as what we call Perkins 5, or the Strengthening Career and Technical Education Act, as well as from OSPI, specific program standards for career and technical education that provide for us the focus of our work and basically the accountability of our work, of how we measure our programs and what we focus on as a district and as a program. Those standards are listed on screen and they range from a variety of things, but there are common things around a very strong connection to industry, very strong involvement with industry partners and students out in the workplace, articulation with post-secondary partners, equity and access, and a new program standard requirement is performance on what are called the Perkins 5 accountability measures, which I'll talk about a little later in the presentation. Next slide, please. How we go about evaluating our programs is an annual process, which we call our CTE program review. That review occurs at 2 levels. The first level is dealing with individual programs themselves. And so by individual program, I mean, for instance, we have a carpentry program, or we have an automotive technology, or a health science, or an engineering or manufacturing. Each one of those individual programs has an advisory committee of industry professionals, community members, parents and students, and higher ed staff that support our teachers. And they annually meet in the spring to take a look at their particular program in relation to those program standards that I just shared with you on the previous slide. And they do 2 things. One, they identify where they're doing well. We call those celebrations. But the other thing they do is identify where there are potential areas for improvement. And those identified areas of improvement become transformed into particular program improvement goals that serve as the focus of the group the following school year. And so this last spring, our program advisory committees completed that review process. They've identified a plan of action to begin in the fall, and they'll soon be coming together with our teachers to begin implementing those goals targeted around improvement. That's at the program level. At the general level, which is our overall CTE program, we do a review, what we call our general review, with the CTE department, myself as director, and my staff, in collaboration with what is called our General Advisory Council. And that is a representative group of industry professionals from our community that work with us to provide feedback and input around our general operation as a CTE department and our focus of program. The data that we use to help define, our celebrations at a general level, as well as our focus at a general level, come from the individual program reviews I mentioned to you earlier. But we now also have an additional data source that is new, which is called the Perkins Comprehensive Local Needs Assessment. Next slide, please. The Perkins Comprehensive Local Needs Assessment, or what we call the CLNA, is something that was just put into place this year, and it involved a much more comprehensive look at our CTE program overall, with the inclusion of multiple stakeholders. That included our advisory members and our General Advisory Council, but it also included regional workforce boards, local higher education partners, groups such as Washington STEM, as well as surveying students and parents, working closely with our EL department and special ed department to gather feedback around 5 particular areas. Those areas around equity and access, our program alignment with the definition of size, scope, and quality, which means that there's sufficient enrollment to provide a 360-hour program of study tied to a post-secondary program, as well as recruitment, retention, and training of teachers, and performance on very specific indicators within Perkins related to targets that the state sets for each of those areas. I'll mention that when we get to our look forward for this next year. Next slide, please. All of that ends up pulled together over the summer into a very large document, which all of you have, called our plan of work. And the plan of work is a 5-year plan of work, which includes our focus for this upcoming school year, and then identified areas for continued focus in the years that follow. That plan of work is revised annually through our review process, just as I mentioned. And it includes both achievements from our plan of work activities from the prior year, which I'll share some of those in a moment, as well as very specific action items that we'll focus on this year. It also includes in the appendix a copy of the comprehensive local needs assessment and a summary of all those individual program reviews and plans of work completed by our program advisory committees. Next slide, please. I just want to, there's a lot in there and I'm not going to cover everything, but I want to highlight just a few of the accomplishments from this past year. The first has to do with looking at a program alignment with regional employment needs. Again, as I mentioned, we are unique in that we have to be very closely tied to industry. And one of the measures that is used to determine the viability and continuation of a CTE program is labor market data. Does labor market data show that there is a significant job demand for that particular program area? Every year, different program groups are reviewed using that labor market data. This past year was a number of our programs called Skilled and Technical Sciences. And those include things like automotive technology and carpentry and manufacturing and others. And all of the programs that went through that process were identified as valid and in need of continuation based on labor market data, all except for one. And that one was our program Jewelry and Metals, which is over at Mount Lake Terrace High School. And while it's a very popular class, and it's a class that the kids absolutely love, in the world of CTE, the question is, what is the labor market demand for jewelry and metal professionals? And there really isn't. And so based on the call of the program advisory chair, who is a non-district employee, but an industry member, his recommendation was that we look at modifying that particular program to look at the manufacturing skills that were taught within the course. And so essentially what we have done is we have retooled, so to speak, that course and made it a new course called Manufacturing Innovations, which focuses specifically on manufacturing practices. And it now serves as a foundation course for our manufacturing pathway, which culminates in our Core Plus program over at Linwood High School. So for Mount Lake Terrace High School, you won't see jewelry and metals on the class list for next year, but you will see manufacturing innovations and you will see the same instructors that were there in the past. It just has a little bit different focus. And then the other two areas I'll mention from this past year really quick are our continued efforts to grow computer science. And this year we piloted a middle school CTE computer science course at Briar Terrace Middle School. Our goal was to expand that next year into our other middle schools, but that timeline was kind of set off course a little bit by COVID and the shutdown. So we are targeting that for the following school year. And then I just want to mention briefly that we have begun conversations with Linwood High School around their interest in developing what they call STEAM pathways. Similar in concept to what Mount Lake Terrace High School has done with STEM, the Linwood High School are interested in looking at a somewhat parallel model looking at STEM with an integration of art. So we will be continuing that conversation with them and planning throughout this next school year. Next slide, please. As you know, a major focus for us and is the getting students out into paid internships and employment where they can extend their learning from our CTE classes while getting paid and also earning high school credit. This was an initiative we really focused on starting 3 years ago. 3 years ago, we had 5 students complete internships for high school credit. Last year, we had 20 students complete. And I made a wild guess. I said, I'm going to shoot for 50. And we actually got 55. Students actually completed paid internships and work experience for high school credit. I can put an asterisk around that because prior to COVID and the shutdown, we were trending at 75 students earning credit. And basically in the spring, we lost some students who just kind of disappeared from the scene or others lost their jobs, but we were able to finish with 55. A couple highlights to the career connected learning were, one, this year we established a pilot program with T-Mobile in the area of computer science around what is called a full stack web development program with Edmonds Community College. That is a 2-year commitment where students who are juniors participate in a paid internship with T-Mobile during the summer. And we had 10 students this past summer complete that internship. And then they begin work during their senior year on a web development certificate through Edmonds Community College. And then the following year, they, upon graduation, have a second internship paid with T-Mobile. And then upon completion of that, they are eligible for direct entry into the full stack web development field with the company. That historically has been a program that has been, or a field that has been open only to those with a bachelor's degree. This pilot program is actually creating a fast track 1-year certificate program, getting our students into that program. It's the only high school internship with T-Mobile in the country. And it's right here in our backyard, and Edmonds got a chance to be on the ground floor. We will be continuing to recruit more students for next year's cohort with that group, but it's a wonderful partnership. I mean, T-Mobile has been a great company to work with, and as well as Edmonds Community College, or excuse me, Edmonds College, and the Washington Alliance for Better Schools, who also helps the coordination of this. A couple others are mentioned, our biomanufacturing internship with AGC Biologics. This past year, we had 18 students in paid internship with them. I'll mention that both T-Mobile and AGC during the closure continued students in the paid internship and allowed them to do the internship remotely from home rather than shut down the program, which was very gracious of them to do that. And we also, during the spring, were able to actually establish a carpentry internship program with the Rotary that allowed our students during spring to actually continue their learning as paid employees at the construction site, where they were able to continue earning high school credit outside of the regular school day. Next slide, please. And the last item I want to mention here to highlight is our in-district internships. And we have focused heavily on trying to build internship opportunities within our district. We are one of the larger employers in Snohomish County. It only makes sense to do that. And this past year, I hired 4 students to serve in my department as our media connections team. They are my CTE media relations team. Jessica Suter, Marie Portugal, Ratika Kanal, and Savan Sot. And they partnered with community relations to actually have their own section of our e-newsletter regularly. And those students went out and covered stories around CTE achievements and events and major activities. And it was just a great experience for everyone. And we are hoping that once school gets back up running soon, we'll be able to reestablish that and keep that going. I will say that we will be publishing in the fall an interview with Chris Reichdahl. Ratika Kanal connected with Chris in June to interview him around the new CTE Graduation Pathways, and that will be coming out in the fall through eKnows. So look for that. Next slide, please. A few other highlights before I move on into our plan for this year. In the area of CTE dual credit, which is college credit, we had 460 students actually earn college credit this year, despite all the challenges. Interestingly enough, that was at the same level we had the prior year when we were complete brick and mortar face-to-face the full year. And we did a lot of work reaching out to students and getting them registered and getting that done. So, there's a story behind that number of a lot of great efforts from career specialists and teachers. Industry recognized certifications, we had 210 students earn industry recognized credentials this past year. That is about half of what we had last year. And that is completely attributed to the spring closure, because during the spring is when those certification exams typically occur. And then the last thing I'll mention is the House Bill 1599 and the CTE Graduation Pathways. And in essence, what the legislature, as you know, created was an alternative for students to meet their ELA and mathematics testing requirement through a recognized CTE pathway. Next slide, please. Which consists of 360 hours or 2 credits of a program that is articulated with a post-secondary partner and that provides both our college dual credit or industry recognized credential as part of the program. We published this past year, just prior to registration, our CTE Pathways Guide, and distributed that to all 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th grade students. It is also an electronic copy on our CTE website. And we have been working very closely with the assessment department and our counselors to help track students who satisfy that graduation pathway requirement through their CTE courses, and will continue to do so. But that was a major lift and accomplishment for us this past year, given that the legislation didn't become official with rules until November. And then we were able to pull it together quickly by the time we hit January and February. Next slide, please. And then this speaks to our, one of the things that pride ourselves very much in CTE and Edmonds is our participation in student CTE clubs and student organizations and our competitions. We are feared across the state, I would say. I mean, in terms of how well we do. This past year, unfortunately, most of the competitions were canceled. So we didn't have as many students participate. In fact, the majority didn't even get a chance, but we did have some. We did have our TSA group, Technology Student Association from Mount Lake Terrace and Alderwood, participate in a virtual competition and actually had a number of student winners. So a little disappointing, very disappointing for our students. I mean, it's kind of the highlight of their year, but we'll be able to pick this up again this year and actually have a much better outcome. Next slide, please. So that's just a look back. What I want to talk about now is just kind of a look ahead and kind of our focus for this year. And we're going to start off first and foremost with preparing for fall. Next slide, please. Around the area of curriculum instruction. We kind of cheated a little bit in CTE in the spring. I began pulling together our departments in May and started having the conversation about strategic planning in terms of curriculum and resources. And this Venn diagram I shared with all my staff, and essentially it's back then it was basically a projection and letting them know that the reality was we were probably going to be in a hybrid or full remote. And so our goal needed to be, what is it we need in terms of curricular resources and tools to be able to allow us to teach in any environment, whether it be full remote, partial remote, or eventual full face-to-face, but it allows us to be nimble and move back and forth with the same tools and resources. So we spent the good part of May and June working with staff to identify those tools and began purchasing those tools. Next slide, please. And this is just kind of a summary of some of the instructional materials and tools that we have put in place. One of the major challenges for us is that many of our classes are very software dependent. Because we are driven by industry, we are bound to use industry technology and applications in many of our programs. And unfortunately, much of those applications are not accessible with a Chromebook. They tend to be Windows based, and our goal was to be able to provide some way of giving all students access to those applications with the understanding that looking at it, their minimal tool would be a Chromebook. And so we have put a lot of time and effort over the past few months working with Amazon and our IT department to utilize what they call Amazon Workspace and AppStream to create a virtual desktop environment that students can access with their Chromebooks, which essentially opens up a Windows environment where they can access the software that is used in those specialty courses, specifically in media, engineering, manufacturing, and in Microsoft IT certification courses. And so we are very close to launching that. We're going to wait until things settle with fourth day count and class lists are complete before we begin deploying out to students. But we've been in a testing mode all summer and are very close to a deployment mode. So it's been very successful, and students will be able to access all of this software that you see here using their Chromebooks. We also looked at a lot of online resources, particularly to support our certification programs, such as carpentry, which is a certification program for our Construction Industry Training Council apprenticeship program, as well as automotive technology and others. Many of our teachers have been working to create what I call micro labs or kits that they will send home so that students are able to work on hands-on labs and projects at home, because hands-on learning and project-based learning is kind of the hallmark of what it is our classes provide. And the one thing I'll mention also is a very unique thing that our automotive technology teacher did. He actually secured a $13,000 grant to purchase toolkits for every student in the class that they can keep at home. And what he'll be doing is rotating different small engine projects that students will pick up from school and take home to be able to use their tools with, to continue that hands-on work, as well as continuing to work toward the industry standards and certification for that course. So actually very much an out-of-the-box approach. Next slide, please. The last thing I'll mention is that not only did we identify the resources, but we dedicated much of our budget to provide teachers time in the summer to work in course-alike groups to begin developing solid instructional plans for remote learning. We provided 14 hours of paid time per teacher per course. And I'll show you in a moment the instructional plans completed, but the focus was on developing solid plans through the first quarter that focused on 3 areas. Building social connection and engagement. How are you going to do that? What does that look like? Synchronous time. How are you going to use that time effectively? And independent remote learning time. How will that time be used? Those plans were developed. Our plan will be to reconvene those groups in October to begin mapping out the remainder of their instructional plan for the semester once we have a clear picture of what November and beyond will look like. So that may be planning full remote learning for the remainder of the semester, or hopefully a hybrid model for the time. But next slide, please. So what you see on screen is an overview of all the instructional plans that have been created as of today. And those were put in place. We had over 60 teachers involved, working pretty much on average about 20 hours each through August, collaboratively in job-alike groups to develop those instructional plans. So while you're never fully ready for the start of school, I know the feedback from our teachers is they've appreciated having that time. Next slide, please. Another area of focus for us will be this, as I mentioned earlier, these Perkins accountability measures. And it's around these very specific measures of 4-year graduation rate, extended graduation rate, ELA math and science assessment proficiency, attainment of industry recognized credentials, attainment of college credits, and participation in work-based learning for a very specific subgroup of CTE students, which are called concentrators. And a concentrator is a student who has completed 360 hours or 2 credits in a single CTE program of study. And our focus for this year will be twofold. One is to figure out how we collect this data in the first place. Right now, there isn't a clear mechanism in place from the state for us to gather this data around concentrators. The state is working on that, and we'll be working with our assessment department as well to look at tools within district that we can use to gather this information. And then once we have that data in the spring, we'll be looking at evaluating our performance against the state performance measures and, where needed, developing plans of improvement around those particular areas of deficit. Next slide, please. And then finally, just a few other additional items I'll highlight from the plan of work before I close up and open up for questions. This year, we will be going through evaluation and reapproval of all of our STEM and health science programs, which includes that evaluation of labor market data for each of those program areas. Fortunately, we know that in the areas of STEM and health science, labor market data is very strong. We may have a little bit of a setback with COVID, but we know that we're looking at long-term projections, not just the immediate. We'll continue that work around those CTE graduation pathways, as I mentioned. And then kind of getting back to remote learning, there are 2 areas that we are working to figure out how to operate well within a remote learning environment. And that's going to be worksite learning. Again, students in internships, we're still committed to making those things happen and are working to revise our processes and materials to support students, staff, and employers to make this work remotely, as well as our CTSOs and clubs. How does that operate within a remote environment? And we're just starting those conversations with our teachers and putting plans in place. Next slide, please. So that's kind of an overview, just kind of touching on that plan of work accomplishments and action items for the upcoming school year. I'll stop now and just open it up for any questions.
Mark, this is Anne. Not so much a question as just an observation and appreciation for the way that you and your department were way ahead, really thinking about how to be effective within a remote learning environment come the fall. I'm just impressed by the way that you've been able to try to prognosticate what things are going to look like and try to make sure that the benefits that our kids have been receiving through CTE all through these years isn't really taken off the table because of this COVID. I mean, sure, things have changed, but it seems like you're doing what you can to try to maximize and continue the progress even with a pandemic. So I just want to just say thank you and just express my appreciation for what you've been able to accomplish.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
I just wanted to mention, Mark, I am really excited about that STEAM program in LHS. For a long time, I've been such a promoter for STEM, but always worried about the lack of emphasis on the arts that STEM has caused. So I really congratulate you on pushing a program like that, and I hope it's successful and can be expanded to all of our high schools.
Thank you.
Mark, hi, this is
Hi, Nancy.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
I want to say how impressive it is, the model that you use for laying out your goals. You look at the goals, you look at the accomplishments, you do the analysis of what works and what didn't work, and then make a plan for the next year. And it's a model for what we should have in every program for the district, and multi-year. Anyway, it's a lovely piece of work, and I give you much kudos. I've always been impressed with your work, as you know, being your cubicle mate. But
That's
in
right.
any case, I think, you know, I looked through your whole lengthy report, didn't read every word, but, you know, read a
I
lot.
won't hold you to that.
Thank you. But the model is lovely for how you just work toward continuous improvement and keeping track of the progress that's going on. So kudos to you.
Thank you, Nancy.
Karen.
Hi, Karen.
Hey, how's it going? Hey, I really want to express the appreciation for you for maintaining the manufacturing innovation program. I know that's a very important one, and I really appreciate you figuring out a way to offer those classes still. So thank you for all the work you're doing on this. This is very impressive.
Thank you, Karen.
Go ahead.
Just really quickly, you know, CTE is a passion of mine. I know the board, when you hired me, we started CTE programs in my last district and found that concentrators in my past district had graduation rates of 10% higher or plus higher than the non-concentrators. And that's something that I look forward to working with Mark and the rest of the senior staff to really expand on that, articulate K-12 programs. I have a lot of ideas I'd like to run. Again, right now we're starting to get the school year started, but once we get the strategic plan going, I look forward to the work being done in expanding CTE programs in an articulated manner across the district. So Mark, thank you for the great work that you've done and being a leader in the area.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that.
And of course, I would also thank you. And you know that I have always been a big proponent of CTE. I do have some questions. Well, first I wanted to point out, in case anybody didn't notice, you know, we have quite a few graduation pathways. There's quite a variety of opportunities in our district, and I think that's also a really great accomplishment. I did have a question. Maybe I'm confused. Well, let me ask the easy question first. If there are, is it possible that there will be on-site internships before the school district opens?
Well, there definitely will be outside of the school district. I know that. So we have students that, I mean, will be working for employers as interns or just full-time or paid employees outside of their school day. So that will be happening. In terms of
that's something they could do, for instance, go to their job site.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You know,
in fact, one of the things that we are going to be doing is continuing with the carpentry internship after school for students to be able to be employed.
Okay.
So in essence, I mean, an intern is an employee. So students can continue to be employees, and we can continue to coordinate with that employer and give them credit.
Okay. And then the other, going back to the manufacturing innovations, will students in that class be doing jewelry and metalworking, or is that just, they'll just be using the skills now to be in other ways?
They're going to use them in other ways. I mean, there'll be some continuity of things such as casting and mold making, but we're interjecting much more 3D printing and prototyping into the class, much more emphasis on manufacturing processes, because that is a really important aspect to a foundation course. So Mark and Nicole have worked, and I mean, they have worked diligently to rewrite their curriculum and to focus around manufacturing standards instead of jewelry. They'll still be able to use the manufacturing process to create things, and some things might be jewelry or metals, but it'll be very, very focused around the process and the manufacturing techniques that are required in whether it be aerospace or marine, whatever manufacturing industry a student happens to pursue if they're interested.
So I definitely think that sounds like a really interesting class. I am concerned though, about the popularity of the old class, the jewelry class, and what makes that different from, say, music. I mean, most of our students aren't going to go on and become professional musicians, but nonetheless, music is valuable.
Right. And I mean, there are many valuable classes that aren't CTE. I mean, they would just become general ed electives, very valuable. The key for us is that we have to have that industry demand. And that is, I mean, that is a state and federal requirement.
Right.
Now, I will tell you this. I mean, we changed the name. The term jewelry and metals did not appear on the registration materials for students. And we have as many kids in there for this year as we did in previous years. So, I'm not worried that we'll lose students.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
Mm-mm.
All right. Well, it sounds great. Thank you for this is one of my favorite reports for many of the reasons other people stated. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. And thank you for your support for CTE. I know that not all districts have what we have, and not all districts have as much support from their boards for CTE as we do. So thank you on behalf of all of our teachers and my department and myself.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, next we have a public hearing. So I will now recess the regular meeting and open a public hearing to accept testimony regarding the 2020 to 2025 Capital Facilities Plan. Tonight's public hearing is for the Board of Directors to accept testimony regarding the 2020 to 2025 Capital Facilities Plan. As always, we're accepting written testimony, and I understand there hasn't been any testimony from the public. And that's right, Allison, right? I confirm that. That we have received no written testimony.
Yes, that is confirmed. No testimony was received.
Okay. Thank you. So seeing that there are no further, there's no testimony from the public hearing is now formally closed, and we are back in session in the regular meeting. I hope I did that all correctly and by the book. So now I'd like to ask for the capital facilities plan for the next 5 years. I think that Ed, and go ahead.
It's actually Matt Finch.
Yeah, hello. Hi there. I'm not sure what I would to be prepared for this specific portion. I believe we're a couple down the item on the agenda. Were there specific questions at this stage around the facilities plan?
So the facilities plans under new business, number 3.
Okay, I apologize. Okay, we'll get back to you. Okay, now we have new business, and our first order of new business is a single reading to approve the sole source contract for the iReady K-12 math system. Do I hear a motion?
I move to approve. It's Gary.
Zan, seconded.
Okay, it's moved and seconded to approve the contract for the iReady K-12 math system. Is there any discussion?
I'd like to make a comment if I could before we get started, Madam President. So I know that the goal for us is to seek a full implementation of this pilot, but during this time, I know that there's been some questions regarding implementation and can we stair step this up over a 2-year period? And that's something that we understand the stressors of a mandate during this time of remote learning could bring to some of our staff. I know some of our staff are really looking forward for this product and like to really provide more flexibility in terms of rolling this out into our district with the goal of continuing to assess the product. Again, it is a pilot year, continue to assess the product and seek information in terms of how it's going and bring back to the board a recommendation down in the spring as we move forward to have it as possibly be something that we utilize in the future. I know that one of the topics that we're going to have a discussion with our board is a more comprehensive assessment system. And what does that look like for our school district? And I know that's a conversation that our senior staff and all staff would want to have in terms of what is it we're trying to measure by using whatever assessment, whatever tool that we're utilizing, and really seek to understand and really to frame our system in a manner that supports all kids. I think this is something that some people are very passionate about, and I understand that, and it's something that we want to do it right. But we also understand that we're starting off a school year remote beginning tomorrow, and understand the stressors that brings and the anxiety that brings to all staff. So I think as we go forward, again, it's our goal to seek full implementation to this pilot, but do understand that because of the stressors, we're going to ask for a strongly encourage people to really take advantage of the opportunity to be able to utilize this product this year as we move forward to having a discussion about what assessment means to Edmond School District. So I just want to kind of preface a conversation and then open it up for questions.
So Dr. Balderas, I want to thank you, and I want to thank the staff, and I want to thank all the teachers who spent the time to give us public comments tonight. And I also want to thank the teachers who also emailed us and emailed me about their feelings about it. I've talked to district staff, and I really appreciate everybody taking the time to dig into the issues and talk it through. And I completely agree that what we need is a full district assessment plan into which we can then set the components that make it work. That being said, I totally get the need for math assessment like iReady with the interventions. I've been clear, and I'll just summarize I have just three issues. One is I'm concerned about the validity at the K2 phase. And when I say validity, I'm talking about making sure that when kids do an assessment, that their performance is actually reflecting their abilities. And there's not strong research to support how well kindergarten, first and second grade kids can do on an online multiple choice test. But what Brandon did talk about, and I would highly encourage kindergarten, first and second grade teachers that if they chose not to give the assessment, that they can just jump in, particularly K and 1, I guess, can jump into the instruction piece and get kids going, and then use the progress monitoring along the way. So for kindergarten teachers, and I know there are those out there that in the pilot saw kids randomly clicking and not finding that kids' results really well matched what the teacher saw, they could choose to do that. Another concern that I have is the utility of it at the high school level in higher level math. So giving the flexibility that you're describing is great, because it means then a teacher can make a decision whether or not this is really an assessment that fits their needs in their situation. I know that there are teachers across the board who have their own assessments that they've been using and they're comfortable with. And I hope that they will try this out so that they can give feedback on it as well. And I think most of all, because everybody's overwhelmed right now with learning a lot of new tech tools, that we need to give teachers the grace to make their decision now, whether or not, and maybe they don't want to, start it in the fall, but maybe they can jump in, later in the year. So giving people flexibility and understanding it, but I strongly encourage teachers to try this and to give feedback, because the board has asked for a really comprehensive program evaluation on this. It's an expensive program, and we want to make sure it's working. I think it's important for you to be very honest about what's working for you, what's not working for you, and help district staff to develop strategies and working as team members in terms of how can you help address the issues that might be there to make this be successful? So I thank everybody, and I appreciate that the district will give teachers flexibility in how they use the system this year, but hopefully we'll take the time to give input about how the experience goes.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to add that as we kind of go into this and really looking at how we're going to use it and it's new, we have 6 surrounding districts that have already used this iReady system in what you would call a normal year. Everett, Evergreen, North Shore, Shoreline, Tacoma, and Vancouver. And so my suggestion is that that we not only get feedback from our teachers and our educators who are using it, but that we try to establish some sort of line of communication with those other 6 surrounding large districts to find out what they're doing with this has been changing, how they're modifying based upon the remote learning atmosphere. Because I'm all one for not reinventing the wheel. If we can gain wisdom from those other systems that have been using it and that are now having to adapt it the same as we are, perhaps we can gain some pointers that would get us a little bit farther down the road or help us out a little bit as we're all trying to navigate through this remote learning environment.
And I just have a word for the teachers we've heard from who have been so enthusiastic about this system. And I found your enthusiasm infectious. And I hope I would like to ask you to spread the word, help your colleagues out, I think that this is something that will, in this particular year especially, even though adopting new things is difficult when we're under working in such challenging conditions, but this particular system seems like it might help teachers who are delivering education remotely. And so I hope that you will help your colleagues adopt or, take a look, try it out, and maybe it'll help them with their remote education. Any other comments from the board or questions? Then let's bring it to a vote. I'd like to call for a roll call vote on the approving the sole source contract for the iReady K-12 math system.
Director Kadams,
Aye.
Director McMurray,
Aye.
Director Chase, Director Chase. Got a thumbs up. Director Noble,
Aye.
Director Kilgore.
Aye. The motion passes. Okay, next we have a single reading to approve the project budget increase of $200,000 for the roof replacement project at Briar Terrace Middle School. Do I hear a motion?
This is Ann, move to approve.
I'll second it. It's Nancy.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the project budget increase of $200,000 for the roof replacement at Briar Terrace Middle School. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a roll call vote.
Director Kadams,
Aye.
Director McMurray,
Aye.
Director Chase, Director Noble,
Aye.
Director Kilgore.
Aye. The motion passes. Next, we have a single reading to adopt the 2020 to 2025 Capital Facilities Plan. Do I hear a motion?
I move to approve.
I second it.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt the 2020 to 2025 Capital Facilities Plan. Is there any discussion? Or
This is
question?
Ann. I would just want to say thank you to Ed and your department. I know this is something that needs to be done, and it encompasses quite a bit of work, and we have a lot of facilities, and so I just want to say thank you to Ed for the work done, and for, as always, for the professionalism that you bring to the Capital Projects Office.
In fairness, I have to point out that I had almost nothing to do with this. This is Matt Finch's work. I did provide some supporting data, but he and his team really deserve the credit, as much as I appreciate your kind words.
And I
Well,
would
that's
just
wonderful. Well done, Matt.
well, thank you. And I would just add, and Ed is very humble, that this is in of course, deep collaboration with the Capital Projects team and all that goes on in their department. So thank you, Ed and Ann.
Any further discussion or questions? Okay, I'd like to call for a roll call vote, please.
Director Kadams,
Aye.
Director McMurray,
Aye.
Director Chase,
Aye.
Director Noble,
Aye.
Director Kilgore,
Aye. The motion to adopt the Capital Facilities Plan passes. Next, we have our board member comments for the evening. I'll call on Director Kadams.
Well, wow, this is really quite a week. So once again, a huge thank you to those, I think it's 21 teams of dozens and dozens and dozens of people who helped get us to this place where we are right now. All the staff, the teachers, the district and building administrators, you've done an amazing job. I'd like to wish the kids and the teachers and the families the best of everything as we start this crazy remote learning. And just remember, nobody has to be perfect here. Everybody's doing their best. Learning will happen. And sometimes the best learning happens when we're in really challenging situations, which we're probably in. So it'll all be good. It'll all be fine. Hopefully we'll get to move to brick and mortar soon, but I just want to wish everybody the very best.
Thank you. Director McMurray.
I would just echo that, and I just want to say in advance a thank you to especially the parents and the families and the communities who are really stepping in to provide educational support in a way that they haven't really had to do up to last spring. And so this has been kind of a game changer for everyone. It's meant a lot of sacrifices, and just a reminder that in my experience, the students seem to be able to handle change better than adults. And so it's just a reminder for us adults in the system just to be as positive and motivational as possible, and just to be able to help our students navigate and do what they need to do. We'll do our best. I want to echo that we're not going to be perfect. This isn't a perfect situation. We're going to do our best. We'll learn as we go along, and we'll make the adjustments that we can make. But my goal and my hope is that we are back to in-person, in-building instruction with students and teachers and staff in the buildings, in the classrooms as soon as possible.
Director Chase.
Along with my colleagues, I do look forward to the start of school tomorrow, and I am very proud and confident of the resiliency of all of our lifelong learners in the district. And I do look forward to hearing reports back from all how things are going. I also want to remind the board that the voting for WASDA board officers is open now, and you can go ahead and make your selections. And remind everyone that WASDA is doing Thursday networking calls at noon, and you are all invited to participate. This last one, I unfortunately was unable to attend. However, I do know that the Department of Health Secretary of COVID response was available to answer questions of board members. And Yakima district was talking about how they were working on their Wi-Fi distribution. So it might be interesting to find out how our partners across the state are working on these things. And so it's every Thursday, it's open to all school board members. And of course, our General Assembly, which is the new combination of the Legislative Assembly and Delegate Assembly, is coming up on September 25th. So here's to all the lifelong learners out there. I look forward to collaborating as the year continues.
Director Noble.
Well, I too am super excited about school opening tomorrow. I think it's going to be a difficult time for everybody, but an exciting time to see what we can do with remote learning. And I'm confident it will be successful. I'd like to make a couple comments about schools in my neighborhood, because that's what I see going on. I know that this year the district grounds people cleaned up all the landscaping around Alderwood Middle School, which is a very, very large amount. And they did just an absolutely superb job. And year before, it was done by a contract nursery. And the difference between the skill and attention to detail that the district ground crew did compared to what the nursery did is remarkable. So congratulate them for that. Martha Lake Elementary School has been very, very busy. It seems every day there's something going on there. Today they had balloons out and there were cars all lined up. I saw a sign for returning books and a sign for computers, and I don't know what else they were doing, but they've been very, very busy with the community over the last week or so, especially. And capital projects, I know they do all the field refurbishments, and at Alderwood Middle School, they refurbished the football field and the softball field. And finally, on September 1st, the fences came down. And I'll tell you, that is the most beautiful turf I have seen in a long time. I'd like to hire those people to come redo my yard, because it really looks good. So the work on those two fields was incredible. Thank you for that big work. So thanks a lot. That's all I have.
Thank you, Director Noble. I would reiterate, thank you everyone who worked in the work groups this summer as well as independently. There has been a ton of work and a ton of collaboration going on all summer long. And I am very certain that it will be all right in the end. We might have some hitches, but we're a big system and we can take it. And I know our kids are going to be happy to be back in touch with their teachers. So everyone take a deep breath and just don't worry about as others said, don't worry about perfection. We'll be okay. Director Chase mentioned something about those networking calls. They have been just enormously informative. And I know I've mentioned them to people on the side. Yes, anyone can tune in. The technology department, I'm going to give you a little bit of time before I start nagging you about learning what Yakima's doing, but what they're doing is very exciting over there. They're sort of crowdsourcing internet access so that a student can be, my understanding of it is that a student can be, say, in or outside or around a church that participates in the crowdsourcing and can log on. It's not that they have to go through the church's network. It looks like they're going through the school network. So the interface is the same for the student, no matter where they are all over town, but all the partners involved in sort of crowdsourcing internet access can provide their piece of the puzzle to it. So I think it's very exciting. And I guess Cynthia and Chris, sorry, but you'll get a call from us. And maybe we can do something here similar. But at the same time, thank you so much to the tech department. I know that the work that you've done has been incredible this summer. I can't thank you enough for getting to our kids the basic education that they need and deserve. And with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Balderas.
So thank you, and I'll be quick because I think everything's been said. I look forward to actually visiting schools virtually this year. I'm going to give it a couple, 2-3 weeks before people start, getting into their routines. And do want to let the board know that we're going to continue to work hard on the hybrid model and the reopening fully model. It's something that we're still working hard on those models. So tomorrow we'll start fully remote, and we'll work continually to see how we can do the hybrid better, and look forward to getting our kids back into our schools here sooner than later. And like you mentioned, getting at least some of our kids, hopefully our students that are most in need, into our campuses here in small learning pods, hopefully this fall at some point. I know that our community needs it, our kids need it. And again, our North Star is our kids. So I talk about North Star a lot, but our North Star, really, our bullseye, we're here because of kids. We want our kids back, and our staff are resilient. So one of the things I'll say, our faculty are absolutely resilient, and we're going to do a great job. I know that we're going to ask for grace and patience from people, but I'm fully confident with our great staff that we'll do a phenomenal job this fall, and look forward to reporting that out to the board. So thank you very much.
Well, and with that, and since it's a school night, I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everyone.